Hey everyone, today we're doing up a really cool Nishiki alien. This is a 1989 one. Really nice tan prestige tubing. Got a cool straight blade fork on it, which tapers down to a nice skinny area. So it should be quite a nice feeling fork with a little bit of flex to it. Nice little N embossed here into the seat tube lug. Came with dual XT components on it. This bike was sent up from Nelson. My friend Michelle sent it up to me. So really cool. Thanks heaps to Michelle for sending the bike up. So we just checked the chain wear before taking the chain off, just to make sure we've got all the parts that we need for the bike. We are just going to use a 7-speed setup. So this does have this really weird front derailleur pull mechanism. So I've seen this on an old Trek that I had as well, where the cable outer sort of is like the flex point instead of like a cable stop on the frame. Pretty strange, but not the first time I've seen it. So I have one of these Nishiki aliens. I never thought I would see one in my size. I've seen that a few times about bikes before, but I honestly never thought that like a really big one would show up. I've seen probably 2 in New Zealand of like very small aliens, and yeah, I just never thought I'd find one in the size. So I've got a really cool handlebar for it, which is the Magic Components moth handlebar. So it's quite a wide back swept handlebar, similar to the Nitto Albatross, but wider. I don't actually have the Nitto Albatross anymore, so I don't know if it comes back as far as the moth, but yeah. I don't think this headset is stock. It's a Shimano 600 one, but really cool piece nonetheless. Seems to be in okay condition, so that's going to stay. The bike overall is pretty tidy. It does have like a few scuff marks, and there's something on the top tube which I don't know quite what it is, but the bike pulls apart pretty easily, so no issues there with like stuck seat posts and things like that. The stem was a little bit tricky to get out, but there was just that little notch that I filed down there in the stereo tube. No real biggie. So that's the inner cable clamp. So it's just bolted to the frame. I think it was a Trek 8000. I can't remember what it was. An old alloy Trek that I remember having that same situation. So it does have a set of bottle bosses on the down tube as well, you can see there.
Okay.
Pretty cool XT parts on it. So just a little bit dirty and stuff. You can sort of see some of the grime and stuff that sort of builds up in the regular spots. Always make sure the washer comes up too. Otherwise the crank tool can just strip the threads. If you push it on, try and remove the WD-40 in there. Chuck the tool in. And then
Yeah. Fuck you.
it has this really cool bottom bracket shell cutout. It almost looks like the Colnago one. But these really help with evaporation and sort of water egress. So bikes that I've had with this bottom bracket cutout, they very rarely have rust in the bottom bracket shell. It really helps with keeping the moisture out and stuff. UN52. So because of that big hole in the bottom bracket, there's like all like bits of gravel and tiny little stones and stuff. The bottom bracket shell does look pretty tidy though, so it's letting water out, which is the good thing. But debris and stuff is just sort of sticking around. Most of the bikes that I've seen without that hole in the bottom bracket shell have been a bit rustier compared to the ones with the hole. Also, ones with the cable guide underneath the bottom bracket shell, and they've got the hole there, but the hole's plugged up with the cable guide. That sort of impedes the flow of the moisture out of the bike, which builds up rust and stuff. So I think we'll clean the shell out. The threads look fine, so not much point chasing them out. And then put a little bit of penetrol inside the bike, and we'll try and get a little bit inside the bottom bracket shell as well. And then we're going to go to the outside of the frame, polish that up, polish that up, give it a bit of a clean stuff, and then go on to the headset. So I did a little test spot here because you can see, so as you can see this, I don't know what has caused this. It's like rubbing. It looks like it's worn through the clear coat, but the clear coat is really thin, I guess. That's the only thing I can sort of think of. It looked like that the whole way across, but then I polished this section, and you can, it's really hard to show it, but you can sort of see like there. It's a lot better. It doesn't look as disgusting as that. So I don't know whether it was actually the clear coat that's worn, or if it's just something that's got on here and it's just like stuck a bunch of grime to it. I don't really know. Either way, polishing cleans it up quite nicely. So we're going to go through and clean the rest of the bike before we go over and polish it. Otherwise you just end up polishing in like the debris and stuff, which just creates a bunch of little scratches. I normally just use some soapy water to get off like all the dirt and stuff, but in some of the tougher places you might need like a mild degreaser, or some dishwashing liquids work really well, but otherwise just like some WD-40 or something to help loosen it a bit. What if it's just dirty? Just dirty, I think. So I think it was just dirt. I don't know whether I should keep this decal or not. A lot of it is sort of faded off. It's not a factory one, but it's suitably old. And the idea of an alien Viking, or a Viking alien, is pretty cool to me. So that's the only reason why it stayed so far. I found a couple little dents, very tiny. There's one sort of there. It's kind of hard to get. Actually, that's where the dent is. Just sort of there. Tiny little dent there. And then there's another one over here somewhere. I don't think I'm going to fill this in. I think it's just going to stay white. So I was thinking of filling in that N at the seat tube join, but I decided against it. I think I do actually have a purple that would suit it pretty well, but I just decided against it. So moving on to polishing up the frame now. You could just use some kind of car polish, normally like something kind of mild to start off with. Just a cream polish. This is a scratch and swirl remover as well. So we'll get rid of like some of the small scratches and stuff, but it's mostly just to remove the scuff marks and stuff, like imperfections off the bike. So this is what I use to treat the inside of frames. You can use Frame Saver or, you know, like a lanolin spray or something like that. There's quite a few things that you can try. This is just the one that I use because it's available locally and it works really well for me. So basically you just spray it inside all the frame tubes. Obviously be a bit careful around threads and stuff, because if it's one that's going to set, you don't want it to set in threads.
because it's a steel handlebar, I should really put some rust treatment on the inside. To show all the shaking and stuff with the handlebar than it is with the frame. Shake, shake, shake. So you really want it to get on each side of the inside, so you sort of got to shake it and spin it around and stuff. Get one curve through. Oh my gosh, this is so big. What the heck? We are going to have to polish that stem up a little bit more. Try a little bit of autosol and see how it goes. In too much time because I don't think it's going to match too well, but we'll hit it with a bit, see how it comes up.
So I was tossing up between using the thumb shifter mounted on the wrong side, but the inside, so you use the left lever on the right hand inside, or a stem shifter, just a nice old Suntour friction shifter, or a widerange shifter. I couldn't really decide, so I just decided to put the thumb shifter on for the time being, and then I can change it out if I didn't like it. So in some of the shots at the end of the video, you'll see that I changed the shifters up. And I definitely prefer it with the stem shifters, just for whatever reason. So I'm a pretty big fan of stem shifters, especially on bikes with back swept handlebars. Don't ask me why, it just feels nice and cruisy. And then you have the stem shifters and you're just cruising around. It's just a fun feeling. I don't know. So I changed it off from the shifter, but this does really well if you want to experiment with that as well.
Moving on to the brakes. Moving on to the brake calipers. M732s. Pivot and stuff out, and then we'll just clean the body up. Give it a bit of a polish with some autosol. So these have like these sort of dome pivot things because there's this side which has this adjustment. So this is like the toe in adjustment, so you turn this and then the pad goes in and out in relation to the rim. Pretty simple. They work pretty good. Only thing I don't really like with most of these old Shimano brakes is they only have a spring adjustment on one side. So it sort of just pulls and then you can't like add tension to this opposite side. So if one side is weak, you sort of just bend the spring a little bit and that can add a bit of tension. Somewhere. Smear it around.
So these are the wheels that came with the bike. They're not a matching rim anymore. So I really like the Araya RM20 that is on the front wheel, but the rear has been swapped out at some point for this Mavic. So I think I'll relace an RM20 into the back when I get a chance. But for the time being, these will do okay. Quite like these Continental Mountain Kings, but one of them is worn. And I've got another set of tyres that are sort of more commute friendly anyway, but I could use these on something else. So we're going to strip the wheel down and grease the bearings up and everything.
Okay.
Got to take the cassette off because we're going to be replacing this as well. So we are going for a slightly wider range 7-speed setup. We'll go through that in a bit though.
What the fuck? Yeah, a nipple just broke. A nipple just broke. Fucking hell. Why was it shit so tight? I don't like alloy nipples. If you're gonna build a wheel, don't use alloy nipples. The one that broke, and it's not seized on there, so that's good at least. But if that one just broke, and I wasn't even really leaning on the bike. But if that one broke and I wasn't riding it, I was barely even leaning on the rim. I don't know if the other ones are gonna survive. A couple of them have been replaced. The spokes definitely need tension. Onwards, I guess. Grease in there. Sometimes I think, why did I record all of that when I could have just used a small little clip? That doesn't look right. That looks like too many. The noises. Great, that worked out well. The stupid bloody spoke with the broken nipple. Snug it up. Doesn't need to be super tight. Not as loose as that fucking stupid ass bullshit. I like that. So now we're going to take this tyre off, replace that nipple, throw the new tyre on. It's not a new tyre, it's Specialized Rhythm Lite, I think it's called. 26 by 2.3. We're also going to be using sort of a wide range 7-speed cassette on this. But we've got a couple of 8-speed cassettes kicking around that are pretty wide ratio. So we're going to be sort of taking the cogs off that, then using some of the spacers from in between a 7-speed cassette. We're going to be using that and just use 7 of the gears. And see how that goes. I do quite like these tyres. I would keep these tyres on it if both of them were in pretty good condition, because I quite like the look of them. It'd be nice. Oh, they're folding too. Lightweight. Be nice to have like a aggressive looking tyre. If I had some Ardent race tyres, I would use that on it, but instead the Specialized Rhythm Lite should work pretty good. I'm gonna have to get it down on the ground, get my weight over it. And sure enough, both beads broke off at the same time. Gone. We don't have any 14s, but I'm gonna just use an old spoke to pop it through there. this focus in the right spot. 12 is better than nothing. Actually, this 12 is probably going to be stronger than the rest of the nipples. So didn't even get to tighten this one and it's already all cracked. So whether that was from like a previous true or not, I guess that could have been the situation with the other one that broke as well. I'm surprised that this one hasn't given up yet.
So this is the cassette that we'll be using on the bike. This is a box for 8-speed, but you can disassemble these. On the back side there's 3 screws that you pull out and then the cassette just all falls apart. So we can just use 7 of these gears and then probably a 12 tooth at the bottom. So that's the screws there. Quite a lot of cassettes have these. Makes it really handy for making like custom setups and stuff.
So now it's 12, 14, 18, 22, 28, 34, 42. I've got the front axle out and stuff, and as I was undoing the cones from the front hub, I noticed that there was like a little bit of binding, which sort of normally indicates that there's some kind of issue with the front axle, right? So I checked it out, I rolled it across the table and it had a wobble to it. So it's straight some ways. So you can see straight there, not straight there. So we've got another front axle of a different wheel. Just going to replace that, throw that in.
So these are the specialized rhythm Lite tyres. I haven't been able to find any of these new, so I got pretty lucky finding these in a used state, but still pretty usable. I really like them. I've tried them a couple of times on different bikes, and yeah, they're like a really great commuter tyre. I think they're ideally suited for pump track and that sort of stuff use, but the nice sort of curved and fast rolling tread on them is really good for commuting, I think. I haven't had too many punches on them, I think 1 or 2, but I haven't done too many Ks on them. So yeah, really like these. Really cool. The front fork has a decent amount of tyre clearance. So I could fit fenders on this bike as well. We're not going to be though. Just sort of my preference. I just don't want fenders on this bike. Even though commuting in New Zealand, you pretty well need fenders year round. Just cleaning up the front rim. I'm just going to use some soapy water and stuff before installing the cranks. Just just making sure there's a decent amount of grease in the bottom bracket threads, and then on the bottom bracket itself as well, just using the same UN52. So the crank caps I used on these race face cranks are just the factory Dior, or I think they come on the MT60 and the M730 series, and you just file down that little bit that I was pointing at before. Checking out the chain line now that we've got the cranks on. Looks pretty good. Probably could do with moving over to the left or inboard a little bit, but we're going to be on the bottom part of the cassette most of the time anyway. So once we've got the chain on, we're just going to check, and the derailleur is going to hit that the largest cog. So we'll try a longer B-limit screw, and that might give us just enough clearance. So that's the factory length one, and you can see it's still going to hit. So we could modify the derailleur, and that might give us like a little bit of clearance if we sort of trim it down to this black line that I drew here. But test shifting, and it doesn't make too much of a ruckus.
I think I have a 40 tooth on another bike, but I don't really want to change that around. I think I don't really use that 40 or 42 tooth anyway. It's just sort of nice to have if I'm feeling super tired or something, or if I've got the trailer on the back, and then it just gives me like a little bit extra gearing to get up some steep short hills. So it will technically run in that gear, but it's not like long term. It's going to wear out that jockey wheel, just being in that gear running on it. I could run one of these which just drops the derailleur down a little bit, just giving that a little bit extra clearance, but I don't really run that 40 tooth or 42 tooth cog that often, so I don't really mind just wearing out the jockey wheel a little bit. So the second gear is a 34 tooth, and that should give me plenty of low range, but it will be nice to have that 42 tooth just in the odd occasion where I'll need it.
moving on to mounting the front rack now. A lot of people ask me about the little rack adapters that I use. Mostly over on Instagram. I think I explain it in the YouTube videos, but I'll leave a link in the description below. But there's a product called the Gamoh rack adapter, Gamoh, that you can use. But otherwise, I just sort of DIY, create my own little ones. We're going to use this vertical one and see how that goes, just because it's a bit simpler. But normally I mount one to like the rear eyelet and then through the front axle, sort of. It's about time to throw the brake pads on. We're going to be using Cool Stop Eagle pads. I prefer to use the salmon compound, which is the orange compound of Cool Stop pads, but these are the ones that I have kicking around, so we're going to be using them. I think the salmon ones just work a bit better in the wet and stuff, but if it's not too wet around you, then these black compound will last longer. So the salmon and black one, like the mixed dual compound, is probably the best for me, I feel. But they work in mud and everything, so definitely get some Cool Stop pads if you don't have some. My favorite grips are the ESI chunky grips. These are really nice feeling, and they're not too, I wouldn't say they're hard wearing, because they're pretty sensitive to abrasions and stuff, but the color lasts a really long time and they stay clean and everything. They don't go sticky. So I put those on with isopropyl alcohol. Really nice feeling grip. And this is just a cork bar end. Last finishing touches on the bike are some stickers. These are ones from Craig, or Second Life Bikes. Then Nico Cycles, and Gary's ones. I've got a whole little stash of some stickers to throw on the bike. Just going to go through my assortment and chuck some on for a little bit of colour and a bit of personality. Got to show some love to the homies. Shout out to Crumbworks. These handlebars are just amazing. I've ridden them now for a few months and just insanely stoked with them. I'm so tall, but finding like a back swept handlebar is pretty difficult. I really like the Nitto Albatross, but it's not wide enough for me because of my height. But this is just such a cool feel to me. So really happy with how the bike turned out. So these are some of the stickers we chucked on. Gary down the bottom there, 26-inch lifestyle. Save Old Bikes is Craig's Second Life Bikes. There's a Blue Lug and Nico Cycles. And this All Ass No Gas is the Solar Commuter Bike Club. Just going to go for a bit of a ride now, and I'll see you at the end of the video.
Tyre Hughes, Magna, 15. Yeah. So that worked really well. I think the short rear end and the really wide handlebars really helped me out there. I'm so happy with how the bike turned out. Really love those handlebars.
And just the way the bike looks and turned out overall, I just really love it. Like from the race face cranks to the front basket and everything. As you can see, we did change to a stem shifter by the end of the video. Just really prefer the setup compared to the thumb shifter. I think it just suits the feel of the bike for some reason. So happy with it. Like, it just looks so cool. It rides really nicely. It's not as stiff as the Alpine Stars, which does sort of better off-road. It doesn't put the power down as much as that, but it just suits my riding and the commute and everything. And it can still do some single track, which is really great. So thanks everyone for checking out the video. Thanks to Crumbworks Magic Components for making this really cool handlebar. It's so cool. It's so cool. If you're taller and you like backswing handlebars, it's definitely worth checking out. I don't know if it'd suit shorter people as much, but there you go. So yeah, thanks for checking the video out, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!